on an all-new Dr. Phil. The Bakersfield 3.
2 missing and 1 killed. Why do you think your son was shot?
He was set up.
Set up for what?
Is it 3 mysteries?
These are all connected. They all know each other.
Or 1?
You know who shot your brother. Why haven't you told the police?
If I knew, I would have told him.
Well, isn't it time to bust this whole thing wide open? Were you the intended target? Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today's going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you.
Well, today we are talking about a story that made headlines, and it just seems to grow darker and more complicated by the day. 2 young people are missing, and 1 person has been killed, all within a 6-week period in the same area. Now, the 3 victims grew up in a really nice neighborhood, have mutual friends, and they ran in the same circles. So the question is, are these cases connected? Or is this just a tragic coincidence?
It's a haunting mystery, one that seems to grow more complex and dark. The disappearance of Micah Holzenbake and Bailey Despot.
And in between those 2 disappearances, a murder in a Bakersfield neighborhood where crime is rather rare. Bringing up the question, is it 3 mysteries or 1?
35-year-old Micah Holzenbake had been missing a week when 38-year-old James Kolstad was gunned down in a quiet southwest neighborhood. James's mother, Diane, knew that Micah and James were friends, so she reached out to Cheryl, Micah's mother. Then, flyers began circulating around town for yet another missing person, 20-year-old Bailey Despot. This about 1 month after Micah disappeared. Cheryl Holzenbake recognized Bailey and knew Bailey and her missing son Micah knew each other. So she reached out to Bailey's mom. It was the club you'd never want to be in, but it's made each mother stronger.
Now, Cheryl says before her son Micah disappeared, he started telling bizarre stories about people watching him, which she thought were just delusions at first, but now she believes it may have been the truth.
My son Micah has been missing for about 8.5 months. The last day that I saw Micah was March 15th, 2018. He asked me for a ride. So this is an area up in East Bakersfield where we last saw Micah. When I picked him up, another individual was with him. They asked me to drop him off across town. He didn't want me to drive down the street where they were walking. They walked this way. These were the apartments they were actually going to. The last place I saw him was right there in front of that dumpster. 2 days later, Micah called me and asked me if I could put his friend up in a hotel for that night. And I said, I can't do that. He began raising his voice, and at that point, I hung up. That was the last time I talked to him. About 10 days later, we started getting phone calls from friends of Micah. They were worried about him. They hadn't heard from him. On April 4th, we filed a missing persons report. We met with his landlord, and he showed us his room, and everything was in order. He had left a lamp on, and he just looked like he was going to walk back in. I believe my son was killed. I think Micah's disappearance is absolutely related to James's murder and Bailey's disappearance.
Well, so who are Bailey and James, and what is their alleged connection to Cheryl's son Micah?
My son James was shot on April 8th at approximately 1:15 in the morning. Last time I saw James was at 10 p.m. on April 7th. He was going out, and I asked him where he was going. He goes, I'm going outside to smoke. I said, well, I'm going to bed. I love you. And he goes, I love you. And that was the last time I saw him. little after 1 o'clock in the morning, I received a call from my son Ryan. He said, "Mom, James has been shot." My son Steven drove me to the scene. I tried to go through the yellow caution tape and I was screaming, "I need to get to my son, I need to see my son." And then the policeman said that he'd expired. I believe that my son was set up to be murdered. 4 days after James died, one of their friends told me that my life's in danger. I would describe myself as heightened alert. When I drive, I'm looking over my shoulder. I try not to be out after dark. I believe that Micah and Bailey are connected.
It was about 2 weeks after James was murdered, Bailey disappeared. My daughter Bailey was 20 years old when she disappeared on April 25th, 2018. Last time I talked to her in person was on April 23rd. I called her and said, "Hey, I'm gonna bring you home some churros," and she was really excited for that. And she opened the door and she grabbed the churros. She's like, "No, I gotta go back in the house." So I said, "Okay, call me later." That was the last time I saw her in person. I was texting her, "Bailey, you need to call me. Where are you?" When I didn't get her, I went over to the house and said, "Is Bailey here?" And one of the teenage boys said no. After 6 days, I filed the missing persons report. I've done everything I possibly can think of to try to find her. I hang flyers. One of these rolls, I can hang up about 15 signs. Posted over 3,000 flyers. I found out doing them back to back works best. I believe that Bailey's disappearance, Micah's disappearance, and James's murder, they're all connected.
I'm bonded with Jane and Cheryl. Once one of them is solved, I feel like all three will be solved.
Okay, well, I'm really actually sorry to meet all three of you. I wish we were here talking about anything else, but I'm really sorry, and Di, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Now, I'm really curious, what have y'all uncovered that makes you think that this is all connected?
We've uncovered that they have, like when we started researching, Cheryl and I, because we started first, that all of their circle of acquaintances that they had acquired within the prior year to 2 years of their life, that they were all the same names were coming up.
Yet, why do you think your son was shot?
I think he was set up.
What was he into that would even be a thing? Set up for what?
As I was researching and learning about the acquaintances that he had acquired in the last couple years of his life, and I was looking at typing their names into the Kern County court system, I was in shock. And I feel that when you look at all the arrest records of some of the acquaintances, it was alarming that there was guns, drugs, battery,
Counterfeiting.
money, counterfeiting. Someone had been arrested for a prior murder, and it became very alarming.
Was this a new group of friends for him? Was this, had he been arrested? Had he been in trouble?
He had been in trouble for DUI. His DUI, he became addicted to opiates from a prescription that he was prescribed for an accident years prior. And so if you look up his arrest record, it is DUI.
Uh-huh. Well, let's go over a timeline of what happened, and just based on what you guys have all told us here. On March 10th of 2018, Micah is seen at a bar and he's appearing erratic. So March 15th, 2018, 4:45, Cheryl picks Micah and a friend up walking down the street. And this is the location. At 6 p.m., Cheryl takes Micah and a friend to a cell phone store. And then at 6:30, Cheryl dropped Micah and a friend off. And this is the last time that you saw Micah, right?
It
That
is.
you said right by this dumpster here.
Yes.
Okay. And then Cheryl learns from Micah's friend that they checked into a motel, this motel.
Yes.
Okay, then now we go to March 23rd, 2018, around 2:56 p.m. is the last time Micah was seen by his friends.
He was seen by an acquaintance in a crosswalk. And
In the crosswalk.
And she knew him, so she felt comfortable saying yes, it was him.
Okay. All right, then April 7th, this is 2 weeks later at 10 p.m., James left and he took your car without your knowledge. You thought he just went out to smoke a cigarette or something, but he took your car.
Yes, he did.
You didn't know he took it.
No.
Okay, then April 8th, 2018, 1:54 a.m., James was shot and killed. And these are pictures of the car. This is your car, and it has bullet holes in it. Now, April 23rd, 2 weeks later, Jane last saw Bailey. You dropped off churros at her house?
Yes. I'm like, hey, get in the car and talk to me, because I hadn't been able to talk to her for the last few weeks. And she's like, no, I got to go back. But she gave me a hug and told her I loved her.
Okay. Now, July 28th, a human leg is found at Lake Buena Vista. And on the 19th of August, a human arm is found in a duffel bag filled with rocks. Now, DNA test is being run on both body parts to see if either of them match either Micah or Bailey.
As we speak.
And
today.
yeah, in fact, those results could come in today.
Like,
You've not seen any activity, heard anything else, cell phone activity, sightings, friends, anything for either Micah or Bailey?
no.
Since
Birthdays have gone by, holidays have gone by,
and
no
nothing,
contact,
just zero.
which is absolutely unlike him.
Okay.
Yeah, Bailey missed her 21st birthday, which is a big thing to a young girl. So she never got her driver's license renewed. I knew that because the detectives checked on it, because I asked them to please see if maybe her driver's license had been renewed somewhere, and it hasn't. Still has presents at home waiting for her.
Well, Di says one of her other sons was with James the night he was killed, and she really feels that he knows more than he's letting on. Well, we're going to find out what he has to say about that when we come back.
I heard those were gunshots. There was a big group of people standing around my brother. I literally just sat there and held him. Then I kissed him on the side of his head and told him, I loved him. I'm never going to get over losing him.
And later, what happened the night James was killed? Were you the intended target?
That's what I've been told.
We're on our way to where James spent the last few moments of his life. When Ryan came in the neighborhood, there was a silver sedan parked here. As he flipped around, he saw his brother go up and park behind the silver sedan. Ryan went up around the corner and heard gunshots. James climbed out of the passenger door of the car and then collapsed on the ground where we're parked. It just feels sad. Just like, why? I feel sick to my stomach. Why, James? He didn't deserve to die.
Well, it's been several months since Cheryl's son, Micah, Jane's daughter, Bailey, disappeared, and Di's son, James, was killed. Now, since then, Di says she has been on high alert because she was told that her life might be in danger. But she does not believe that James was the intended target because he warned her 2 weeks before he died that there were some bad people after his younger brother, Ryan, who was with James the night someone fired 4 rounds into his car.
I was at someone's house, and the homeowner was like, tell your brother to leave, and I'm gonna have my boys come, and they're gonna come strapped. And my brother was in the driveway. As I turned the corner, we passed each other. My brother, instead of exiting the neighborhood, had made a U-turn and parked behind a car. And then as I was pulling out onto the main street, I heard this, what was that? And then My passenger said those were gunshots. I drove back as fast as I could. There was a big group of people standing around my brother. You could hear the sirens coming. I literally just sat there and held him. Then I kissed him on the side of his head and told him, I loved him. He was 16 months older than me. He's my big brother, always looking after me. This is the hardest thing I've had to deal with. There's just a lot of questions. I want to know who and I want to know why. I'm never going to get over losing him, but I think finding out who and why is going to help.
Well, Ryan, thank you for being here, and I'm very, very sorry for your loss. What happened the night James was killed, and why do you think it happened?
Well, as you saw on that tape, I was at someone's house, and he called that person. That person owed him money, and the guy said, to have him not come over here. If I have to, I'll have my boys come over and they'll come strapped and take care of the problem. And I was like, well, not thinking what was going to happen. And so I was like, well, if he shows up, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And I was asked to take somebody else that was there out of there. On the way back, the homeowner called and said, hey, your brother's out front. My boys are on their way right now. As I turned the corner, he was pulling out of the driveway. I noticed that there was a silver car parked with its lights on, but didn't pay any attention to it. And I turned around the cul-de-sac, and I was coming down the street, and instead of him turning right and exiting, he had made a U-turn, and he pulled up behind that car. In my peripheral, I saw lights coming out as if he were going to follow me. And then when I got past the wall, there's, walls where the neighborhoods are, I hear this noise when I thought I hit something with my car. And I said, what was that? What I hit? And I had a passenger. And he said, those were gunshots. And I said, no, they weren't. He said, yes, they were. I took off driving and then made a U-turn, went back. And as I turned the corner, I saw the Fiat with all the airbags blown out of the driver's side. And I saw these people standing around. And I didn't even park. I just stopped in the middle of the road, and I got out. And I saw James laying on the ground. And James is the type that, if he wrecks a car, he might, run away. So I'm like, James, get up, get up. And he was just laying there looking up like he was confused. And his lips were the same color. Like there was no... Like, your lips are not the same color as your face. It was just the solid same color. And I started just telling him I loved him and I was sorry that we were arguing. I was like, Cameron loves you. It's not my niece. Autumn, his other daughter. I said, we all love you. Just hang on. And, help is coming. And I just laid there and I held him. I held him and I kissed him on the side of the head. And then the cops pulled up. The EMTs had rolled him over, and I saw the bullet hole in his back. He was shot in his lower back. And when they finally let me cross over the tape, I said, how's my brother doing? And he's like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, just tell me, just be honest with me. And by that time, he said, he didn't. And as soon as he said it, I saw his body laying there covered with the yellow blanket. And then I called my mom and I said, James died. In a nutshell, that's what happened.
You know who shot your brother. Why haven't you told the police?
If I knew, I would have told him.
And later,
I hadn't been able to find Ryan. He wouldn't answer my text, so I thought possibly he was dead. And James said that bad people were going to kill Ryan.
you know who shot your brother. Why haven't you told the police?
If I knew, I would have told him. Give me a polygraph, please. Please.
You don't know who shot your brother?
No. And if I did, I don't even think I'd let the cops have their chance. I love James. He was my older brother.
This person that you were going to be in the house with, he called these people?
So naturally...
He called them to come over?
Naturally, that's what we all suspected. So I went out after this, you know, after he had died, after the funeral, and I started my own investigation, you know, because I feel I'm going to get more answers than the cops will. You know, if you know when it comes to the underworld, the street mentality, it's, you know, you don't talk to the cops. I mean, even by me coming on this show and talking, you know, I'm putting my own, you know, life at risk. But, you know, me and James didn't live that lifestyle. You know, if we hadn't been doing the things we were doing, hanging out with the people we were hanging out with, he would still be here, and I acknowledge that. But that wasn't our lifestyle. If me coming on this show and telling you everything I know, and you using your resources, and it helps find the person who did this.
Well, isn't it time to bust this whole thing wide open? I mean, were you the intended target?
No, that's
been said a couple of times, Dr. Phil. I think Ryan and James were so close that I think he knows. He's just not able to. I think he knows more details. I think that he probably knows who that car was.
Were you the intended target?
That's what I've been told.
By who?
There was this story, you know, thank God for my mom and these other two. I mean, the Bakersfield 3 has gained so much publicity. FBI profiler in Chicago heard about the story, and she's a psychic, and she reached out to our law enforcement to be put in touch with my mom. And apparently James has come to her and told her names, people's tattoos, description of vehicles, and apparently, according to her, I was the intended target. That's where that information comes from.
You're going to this house where you're going to watch a movie and eat a pizza and just hang out with this guy, but you said he owes your brother money.
After the fact, that's what I found out.
Okay, and your brother's there knocking on his door, and he's saying, "You need to get out of here, or I'm going to call my buddies, and they're going to come over here strapped and take care of you." Isn't that what you said?
That's what he told me, yes. He didn't tell that to my brother. He said, your brother called, tell him that, you know, I don't want him here, and if I have to call my boys. And like I said, my brother and I were arguing at the time.
Okay, so this was a friend of yours, and your brother knew him too?
Yes.
He's a friend of yours enough that you're going to watch a movie and eat a pizza with him?
Yes.
So you know who his boys are?
I don't know who he was referring to.
You know this guy, and he tells you hours before this happened, a couple hours before this happened?
Probably about, yeah, you could say hours.
Hour
Yeah.
and a half, that he's told your brother, or he's told you, he has said out loud that he's going to call his boys that are going to come over strapped. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, within an hour and a half, some people show up and shoot your brother.
Yeah, yeah. Right, exactly. So, but like I said, there's a lot more to this than what's been said, so.
Well, I realize it, but that would seem to me to be a key starting point. Somebody says, if he comes over here, I'm going to call my boys that are going to come strapped, meaning with guns, and shoot your brother. And sure enough, he's either a hell of a fortune teller, or he calls his boys that come over and shoot your brother. You've got to connect these dots real close. You're right, I do have resources, and we've solved a lot of crimes on this show, and this may be the next one we solve. Closed captioning provided by You said before, 2 weeks before, that you had been told by James that bad people were after Ryan because he funneled $18,000.
Yes. That's what James said to me. I woke up, I'd had a dream. Their very close friend that we kind of adopted in our family had died in an automobile accident. And I saw him in my dream, and it was like a waterfall of tears. And I hadn't been able to find Ryan for 4 days. He had been running around. He wouldn't answer my text or my Facebook messages. And so I thought possibly he was dead.
Yeah.
From the
Understand.
dream. And James said that. He comes running down the hall to try to see. He thinks there's something wrong with me in my room. And that is what he told me, that bad people were going to kill Ryan.
You've got to connect these dots real close. You're right, I do have resources, and we've solved a lot of crimes on this show, and this may be the next one we solve. But it's because people like you start unfolding and unraveling the ball of yarn and letting these resources have information. But we know that whoever did this crossed the line. You didn't cause your brother to get shot. You didn't shoot your brother. Somebody else did this, and they need to pay for it, and you need to not protect them. You need to not protect them out of fear or anything else. They're fear brokers, and that needs to be dealt with.
No, I'm not. Trust me, I've exhausted all my efforts. When I went out after and started, questioning people, and I had people coming to me. Also, when the car had passed us, when I was stopped and we slouched down, he said that he saw the individual in that car. And that guy had to go and serve some time. And when he was locked up, everybody in his little inner circle were throwing him under the bus and basically saying that they thought that he had something to do with it. Basically, all the roads led to this guy. Nothing indicated to the homeowner.
And so this girl you dropped off was connected to who?
Micah.
All right, we have to take a break. Now, we're going to meet Di's granddaughter and find out why she says that she's been living in fear since her father's death. We'll be right back. Because there are so many unsolved pieces to this, tell me what your biggest fear is.
To get killed or to have somebody else die in my family.
Closed captioning provided by Di says her 18-year-old granddaughter Cameron has been struggling since her father James' death, of course, which she believes is connected to two missing people, Cheryl's son Micah and Jane's daughter Bailey. Now Cameron says she is so paranoid and afraid that someone will try to kill or kidnap her that she just cannot even be alone.
I was really close with my dad growing up. We both had a love for each other that is unexplainable because it was really me and him against the world. 2 weeks before he died, I said, "Hi Dad, I love you." And he gave me a hug and said he loved me, and then he left. That was the last time I saw him. I didn't think anybody could hurt him. I thought that he probably overdosed or something like that. I grew up knowing that my mom had passed away in a car accident when I was 16 months old. But now I feel like an orphan. I used to be so fearless. I always felt safe knowing that my dad was around. That's something his murderers have taken away from me. I haven't gotten any information from the police. Nobody has said anything to me, and that hurts.
Tonight, a sea of candles lit up the Liberty Bell downtown. The community standing in support and solidarity of the Bakersfield 3.
When the news asked me to be interviewed for the candlelight vigil, I was kind of like, it's about time someone tries to get my story. I can speak for my dad, and he was the most loving man. He didn't deserve to get killed, and his story does deserve to get shared.
Cameron, thank you for being here, and I'm, again, very sorry for your loss. I just can't even imagine. It's just terrible, and it's terrible the way that it happened. Because there are so many unsolved pieces to this, you're still very worried about further violence, right?
Yeah. I I can't even like sleep at night or like hang out with friends anymore.
And
Sorry.
tell me what your biggest fear is at this point.
Honestly, to get killed or to have somebody else die in my family, because I've dealt with it my whole life.
What do you think happened? What's your sense of this whole thing?
Well, I knew growing up, me and my dad were always really close. And even though I didn't live with him while growing up, we stayed in contact and hung out all the time. But within like the last 3 years, we just grew farther and farther apart. And I knew that he was involved in drugs, and that hurt me because that was my only parent. When he died and I woke up and found out that he was dead, I thought it was an overdose. I didn't think that somebody could kill him because everyone loved him. I mean, he could walk into a room and if nobody knew him, everyone would still smile because he would be smiling. And he was just he had that contagious smile.
Did you see anything, hear anything, overhear anything, pick up any clue leading up to this that suggests to you what may have happened and why?
No, just because I knew that he was taking drugs. I knew that. I could see it, and he wasn't the same person, but I didn't know that of anything like that ever happening. I didn't think that could happen.
It can't be coincidence, can it? I mean, really?
No.
I just don't think it can be.
There's no way these are independent events. Everybody knows that the connections here were many, right? We've kind of put together, basically there is a distributor here, there's a bookie here, and there is what we call an enforcer here. And we've got Micah here who's missing, Bailey who's missing, and then James who was killed. And Ryan, you were there that night. And when you start looking at the connections here, it's just really amazing because Micah was tied to Bailey, right? They knew each other.
Yes.
Okay. And of course, James and Ryan were both there that night. So we know that. And then there is a family friend here, a family member, and there is a gun seller here, gun seller 1, and this gun seller is tied to this family member, is known to this family member here. And then Bailey is also tied to this person, correct?
Yes.
There is a connection there. And then these three are all connected. They all know each other. So these three are all connected. This friend down here is also tied to Bailey and Micah. So this friend down here is tied to both of those two, so we've got someone here as well.
And this friend, if I'm remembering correctly, who's connected to the bookie,
Right.
was with Micah. And also,
Who's the friend?
and he's the friend.
Yeah, and then these two are connected as well.
They're the friend that are connected to James.
I'm sorry?
And this friend who was with Micah was with Ryan. Yep, and James was friends with Micah.
Yeah.
And the person is how I met Micah. Coincidentally, the night I met Micah was with you-know-who.
And this gun seller, too, and we're not using the name, but this gun seller, too, was also tied to this friend.
Mm-hmm. So it can't be coincidence, can it? I mean, really? I just don't think it can be.
So, I mean, this whole thing is so interrelated, it's just unbelievable.
And the enforcer knew Micah.
And the enforcer knew Micah. And multiple
People.
gun sellers.
Right.
I think 2 and 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, these were involved as well.
So when we all started talking, we realized, well, it just can't be coincidence that these 3 individuals and 3 families were affected within 5-6 weeks of each other.
No, and when you look at this, you see an awful lot of roads
Yes.
lead back to Micah here.
Yes, you do.
James, Ryan, family member, friend, Bailey, gun seller 1, 2, 3, and Bailey and Micah's friend. And then, of course, gun seller 3 is tied to the distributor. So there's no way this is independent. There's no way these are independent events. When you look at the ties, visually, there's no way it's independent. Next, we're going to talk to our affiliate reporter from KGET TV and find out what she uncovered about this case. And she has some information that is new. We'll be right back. Closed captioning provided by... We have run out of time, but there is still a lot more to unravel with this case. Tomorrow, a former police detective and former FBI profiler give us a very detailed description of what they believe happened and who they say the possible suspect or suspects could be. Take a look. Tomorrow, we're going to dive deeper into this story and uncover several possibilities in the case that were not discussed before. Believe me, you do not want to miss this. I want to thank all of my guests today. We'll see you next time.